Hello and welcome to Todd Rolls Dice, where we finally have a developer's commentary on the new balanced data slate for Warhammer 40,000. So we're going to run through this article. I have had a bit of a think about this one, because we're not actually showcasing 10th, and I'm incredibly rusty on the rules, and to be honest, the last 12 months of changes. I'm not going to do a deep dive, a breakdown or anything. There are so many other channels that do amazing jobs. I'm not going to highlight any of them because you will all have your favourites, I'm sure. But we're going to run through this article, we're going to have a quick look. The download section is going to be linked in the description of this video if you want to jump to it from there. Or WarCom downloads 40k. All of the changes are highlighted there so you can get your army rules and updates quick and easy. But we're going to run through this, and then this is going to give us a bit of an overview of where the designers' heads are at with these changes, what they're looking to do, and potentially where we're going in this sort of final, 10 months or something of what we think is Warhammer 40k 10th edition. So how about we jump in? The Warhammer 40,000 balanced data slate. Developer's commentary that didn't drop on Friday, even though the rules updates dropped on Friday. The latest Warhammer 40,000 balanced data slate emerged into real space quite suddenly on Friday night. Some might point to the temporal vagrancies of the Immaterium. Others may believe someone pressed a button they shouldn't have done. Oh, that last line is telling. Someone has got a warning on that one, haven't they? That is not going to be a very good performance review. But now everyone has had a few days to consider the changes the document brings to the game, and we've directed the Warhammer community astropathic choir towards emissaries of the Emperor's most holy design studio to find out a little more about the why of these quarters changes. Oaks, oaks, oaks. There's lots of orcs pictures in this article actually. So, there were no core changes this time, as we're generally happy with most systems and have decided not to cause a ruckus this time. Likewise, we weren't able to supply new detachments, they weren't quite ready in time, but we intend to add more on the next update. Yes, the detachments were missing, weren't they? Interesting. Why were they not ready? Would be my question. I mean, they had one job. Well, they have a number of jobs, but they had one job. Perhaps the most important changes this time is to the chapter-approved 2025-26 mission pack. Mission balance has been quite tight with the most recent chapter-approved pack, and after listening to player feedback, we feel that the challenger cards, the catch-up mechanic, are not needed in the competitive event at present, so we have removed them from tournament play. We continue to encourage challenger cards for pick-up and play situations where skill levels between players can be quite different. That's a big change. So this catch-up mechanic came from Age of Sigmar Spearhead. Brilliant mechanic, really fun, and it was sort of written into the game as they were writing the Spearhead rules. This is the final year, what we think of this edition, and they've thrown in this capture mechanic that I think personally was a good idea, but it did feel a little bit half-baked. It was very, here's an easy thing to do, there's easy victory points. There wasn't a lot of skill or tactical nuance necessarily required for them, I don't think personally. Removing them from tournament play makes absolute sense. I think that they probably should have been introduced as a casual thing, see how it lands with a wider community. Maybe not test this stuff in tournaments when there's a whole host of other changes as well, let's be honest. That's what these chapter-approved decks do, they aim to shake the game up a little bit. Maybe the challenger cards was too much of a shake-up, but tournament-wise, challenger cards have gone. What I'd love to know in the comments, not necessarily competitive players, but I know a lot of you guys probably play competitive as well, but just casual players, do you use the challenger cards and the catch-up mechanics, and have you seen any real change with your games by using them or by not using them? And which do you prefer? Let me know in the comments, I'd love to hear your thoughts, because I haven't played 40k in ages, I'm so rusty on the rules. Yeah, big change. Let's get into the factions. While we're generally happy with the performance of the Adeptus Sororitas, we've given Retributors a little damage boost to their ability, which now gains a +1 to hit and +1 to wound, alongside some minor points drops. We've reduced the points for certain key Adeptus Custodes units, which weren't showing up in as many lists as we'd like. Belisarius Cawl is supposed to be a centerpiece of Adeptus Mechanicus armies, but he hasn't played as we imagine him to be, so we've overhauled Cawl's abilities, they've changed a lot with Cawl actually, and improved his Solar Atomizer, and as a result given him a price hike to better go in line with his newfound power. Interesting changes, so they've changed some of his kit, bit of a points increase. Is changing his kit and then giving him a points increase going to incentivize players to play him more? That's the question. We'll find out. The Onager Dune Crawler's Eradication Beamer has also been reimagined, though its points are the same for now. Finally, we've also improved the weapons on Iron Striders, Sicarian Infiltrators and Rust Stalkers, as we wanted them to feel a bit better offensively. All changes that I don't have any issues with. We know that AdMech have been struggling in the last, 2-3 editions? I think as a faction they need a massive shake-up for how they operate. I don't know how you do it, but I'd like to see something happen in 11th where they actually take them seriously and give the army a bit more of options and choices between units. That's a whole other question, but hopefully this actually gives AdMech a bit of a boost because they really do need it. We want to keep a close eye on Eldari, and to promote list diversity at all levels, we've brought down the points of Assaman, the Avatar, 10 Model Corsair units, Dire Avengers and Wraithblades, and increased the points for units of 5 Corsairs and 10 Swooping Hawks. Interesting changes. The points changes that they do, the tweaks and things, it is more just about balancing how units interact within an army, isn't it? I think everybody knows that Eldari is strong. We'll see what these points changes do. Hopefully they're well received and they improve a little bit of balance, but honestly, if you are looking at a game as a competitive sport, which is what they do with 40k, you are always going to have units, regardless of the price, regardless of what they actually cost in terms of monetary and points values. You're always going to have standouts, you're always going to have competitive players, top-end players, who are going to take the best units and as many of them as they can, in as big a number as they can. But Eldari have some incredible units, and just changing the points doesn't always promote diversity in other units. It just means that some units cost more when you take less things. I'm not sure that just changing points is the answer to all of these questions. But that's how they've generally done with the balance updates for 40k, isn't it? It's always points changes. The first thing they do is change the points. We'll see how that lands. I think Eldari is still going to be okay. We know Astra Militarum players love their big tanks, but the Rogel Dawn and Rogel Dawn Tank Commander have been pretty consistently overperforming, so we've raised them by 10 points each. Okay, I feel like the Rogel Dawn should overperform. I feel like the Tank Commander should overperform. If you think they're overperforming consistently, what is 10 points going to do? Super heavy tank variants are all down by 30 points, joining Gaunt's Ghosts, Lord Solar Leontis, and Krieg Engineers in drops. They've dropped Krieg Engineers. Interesting. So, one increase by the sounds of it, or a couple of increases. Rogel Dawns have gone up, but the rest of it, super heavy tanks, Bane Blades dropping by 30 points. It's pretty generous. I always thought Gaunt's Ghosts was a pretty solid unit. Lord Solar Leontis, from what I remember of his data slate, and it might have changed, but I remember him being pretty good. And the Krieg Engineers sounded pretty good at some insane points, and then they were increased. I wonder what they've dropped them to. Krieg players, let me know what you think. The Blood Angel Sanguinary Guard have increased weapon skill and points to push their status to Elite Bladesmen. Yeah, can they also get some wings in their kit at some point, please? The Legion of Excess has regained rerolls to hits in its detachment roll, while the Keeper of Secrets and Fiends have fallen in points to reflect their role and power in relation to the rest of the Chaos Demons. The Infernal Lance has come out of the gate a bit strong for the Chaos Knights. So we've changed Unnatural Fortitude into a choice between a 5-up invul save or a 6-up feel no pain. Did it used to be both? I mean, if it was, that's pretty strong on high toughness, high wound models. The Knight Abominant's ability may no longer be used multiple times on the same unit by multiple abominations. That's just a balance tweak, isn't it? I don't believe they actually playtest this stuff in any real sense. Obviously, they will test things out and they will do the mental gymnastics for it, but the best way to test this stuff, and I think this is their view, is to throw it out to the community and see what the community thinks. And if a couple of tournaments are swayed by Death Guard or Chaos Knights or whatever, then we just do an emergency tweak and we bring them down. I feel like some of this stuff could have been picked up earlier, but honestly, we see how it all lands, don't we? Chaos Knights, what do you think of these changes? Let me know. And was Unnatural Fortitude both a 5-up invul and a 6-up feel no pain? Because the choice sounds like that should have always have been the starting point for it, or the choice between, sorry. But let me know in the comments. The Venom Caller, Chaos Land Raider, and Abaddon have all fallen in price. The Chaos Space Marines, wasn't Abaddon pretty good? With a minor points decrease to the Dark Commune, we're not pushing them too much at this time, as we're interested to see how their bully armies behave before taking another look at them. Interesting. I mean, I'll always take a points decrease on any Land Raider because Land Raiders are amazing. But yeah, the Venom Crawler I don't think was in a great place, was it? Or am I thinking of a different unit? Yeah, interesting. I mean, they have all the data to peruse and figure out all this stuff, don't they? So I'm always going to lean towards what they say. But yeah, interesting. Big ones for the Dark Angels. So for the Dark Angels, we've been nudging the Lion towards a vision we are happy with. Feedback has suggested that he needed to keep one of his abilities on all the time, which wasn't offering much of a choice. We've now brought him in line with Guilliman, and will let him choose 2 of his abilities, and those abilities are strong. Meanwhile, to motivate Ravenwing lists, the Land Speeder Vengeance has had its plasma damage improved, not a bad idea, and the Death Shroud is now cheaper. Good. I do wonder, of all of the people that take these units, how many of them actually want to buy the old models? You may see more of an uptick if the Death Shroud had been reworked into the new Land Speeder design. And I think that will come in 11th. I think Ravenwing is going to be the thing that Dark Angels get for 11th. But sometimes I do wonder how these changes actually affect people's decision to buy models when the models are really old. We'll see. Either way, I think that Ravenwing lists have, I mean, their detachment was pretty good. So we'll see how that lands, but that could be pretty nice. The Death Guard have recently received changes, so we want to keep an eye on them before we make any further amendments. That's not a bad idea. The Death Watch and Drukhari have had minor points reductions in certain areas. I am concerned about Death Watch as a faction again. I know they have their index, but the new Kill Team Death Watch kit that was in the Tomb World box and will be released on its own eventually. I haven't seen anything where they have 40k rules, and as a unit I don't see how they would work. So I'm concerned how that becomes a troops unit for Deathwatch, and Deathwatch currently doesn't have a troops unit on sale. I think the idea of Deathwatch is you buy standard Space Marines, you buy the shoulder pads, you stick them on. That's your Deathwatch. Which is fine, but they need a better upgrade sprue. Deathwatch as an army is incredibly popular. I don't know how well they do in tournaments, probably not that well, but they're an absolute staple of Warhammer 40,000, and I'm concerned that they're still looking to get rid of them as a faction, which I think is the wrong choice. Drukhari, we know that their codex is coming, so any changes that they do here isn't going to be huge. Again, Drukhari are losing some things from what the codex leaks have said, which is a shame, but we'll see. Obviously, everything is going to hold until their new codex comes out and we see what their rules actually are. I'm surprised that they're changing Drukhari, honestly, but maybe they just needed a little push-up, so we'll see. We want players to be excited by Fulgrim. So, yeah, interesting words. And with his large base, he needs some help getting around. We've therefore given him a new ability called Serpentine to help manage his form and move through smaller terrain. We've also changed some points to boost unit diversity in the Emperor's Children. Bearing in mind the Emperor's Children don't have many units. Yeah, interesting. We're aware of certain Genestealer cult stratagems which needed some tune-up as a result of the cult ambush changes last year, and we've now beefed them up. It's good to hear. The Host of Ascension can sometimes be punishing to interact with, so we've reduced its power and looked at the points of the Abominant, Hybrid Metamorphs, and Pure Strain Genestealers to help some of the other builds. Interesting. Grey Knights are under observation for the most part, with a view to changes perhaps in the next Dataslate. Land Raiders have come down in points. Again, is the Grey Knights thing that people just aren't wanting to get into the faction because the models haven't been refreshed yet? I'm not entirely sure that's a solid argument. Let me know what you think in the comments. But for an army that looks out of place, for me, and I go by models, modern rules, are there new people picking up Grey Knights? Good that they're not making changes, their codex hasn't been out too long, so we'll see what happens. But Land Raiders have come down. Land Raiders are probably a staple in a Grey Knights list anyway, certainly at 2,000 points. So that's probably quite a nice little boon. We don't want the Valor Strike Lance detachment to become the only Imperial Knights formation, so the stratagems now only affect one unit. So they've made a change to Imperial Knights straight away. And advances may no longer be re-rolled. We feel confident that the detachment will still have options, but will not be oppressive. So they made a really strong Knights thing after Knights players having to wait for ages for their new book, and then they've taken that really strong thing and nerfed it straight away. That's not a great feeling, is it? But we'll see how it lands. The knight stuff did sound interesting. Some of their detachments, it sounded like they had some play, so we'll see. We don't generally like having rules which ignore the opponent's rules. So for the Necrons, we've looked at the Silent King's ability to ignore modifiers and have changed it to a movement buff for nearby units. That's a hell of a different change. We've brought down his points accordingly alongside Triarch Praetorians to get them onto tables. Yeah, I think what we're seeing, and they're justifying points decreases because units aren't being played. Maybe units aren't being played not because the points are too expensive, but because their abilities aren't great. And while I think once you've printed all the stuff and the rules have been out for so long, and they've very reluctantly changed abilities and things. They've done it with Call this time around, and they have done it in the past. But I feel like if a unit isn't doing what they want it to do, you've probably failed in writing it and giving it a usable ability within the army or within certain detachments. I'd like that to change for 11th. Changing the Silent King, and he's obviously decreased in points, so that's going to help, but having an ability that ignores modifiers is nice, and for a character of that stature, it makes sense. But for that ability to be changed to have a movement buff instead, which Necrons, they're slower, a movement buff is probably nice, but that unit functions very differently. That is a very different buff. It's going to shake up Necrons, I think. We'll see. I get that they want all of their toys to be usable in all of these factions. It isn't going to be the case when you're pandering to the competitive scene, because the competitive scene is take as many of the good stuff, and if you nerf something, you take as many of the next good stuff. That's what competitive is. Competitive is about winning, having fun, and enjoying the game and socializing and spending time with opponents as well. All of that is a big part of the competitive scene and a positive part of the competitive scene. Ultimately, at the top tables, they're out to win. They're out to take as many units that can take away the randomness of the dice rolls to give them the best chance because they want to win. If you have units whose abilities just don't link in with everything else, and I'm not saying that Triarch Praetorians don't do that, I don't know what their rules are. I don't have the Necron Codex. But maybe you need to think about how things interact with other rules rather than, we're going to give this unit a points decrease because we haven't sold enough boxes. Is that a fair comment? Let me know what you think. We really wanted to give love to the orcs without opening up any problematic playstyles. As a result, we've made a few interesting changes. That's another thing. We want to update orcs because they're not doing quite what we want to, but we know that they're problematic. Why are they problematic? Because they've written the rules that way. As a result, we've made a few interesting changes with numerous point drops to boot. In particular, Gazkul can now join Knobs and Boys and takes up to 4 transport slots in battle wagons. I believe he was something like 15. That might be wrong. I heard that on a Valrak chat, so I might be wrong. Shout out to Valrak, by the way, who did cover this stuff on Friday. I was dipping in and out. It sounds like that 4 transport slots is so much better than it used to be. He's a giant model, and if you put him in a battle wagon, I'm not sure it's going to go very far realistically, but that's orcs, isn't it? It's not meant to be realistic. It's crazy. It just works. But that's good. And giving Gaz the option to join other units is probably a good shout as well, bearing in mind that he can do whatever he wants because he's Gazgul Thraka. So I think that they're fun changes, and hopefully that makes Gaz a bit more interesting. For Space Marines, we've been relatively light on points changes. Space Wolves have come out swinging, so we've brought a few points on overperforming units. If I remember rightly, Head Taker's got a tweak, Arjak Rockfist got a change, and somebody else got a change. Blood Claws, 20 Blood Claws, and I think Ragnar got a change as well, off the top of my head. When I skimmed through it on Friday night, I didn't think that they were that aggressive, in all honesty, so not too many changes. Quite a light touch. For the Tau, we wanted the Riptide to be able to handle light hulls a bit better, so the ion accelerators are now a bit punchier. I think generally the battlesuits got a nice update for the Tau in this one. Some points drops on battlesuits, I believe. We haven't been happy with the risk-reward relationship of the Thousand Suns, and we've taken another pass at the army rule. You can now only attempt to manifest each power once. This is to encourage using extra dice when you need it to go off without just stacking multiple casters. Sorcerers now have a different benefit to the unit they lead. Well, there are numerous points changes. Thousand Suns they keep playing about with, don't they? We'll see how that lands. I haven't looked at their changes. Thousand Sun players, let me know what you think of these changes, because I don't think they were that oppressive, were they? Like I say, I don't keep tabs on the the week by week reports of the tournament scene, but I don't think Thousand Sons were that much of a problem, no more than usual. The armies that Tyranids have had a rougher time against have been dialed back, so we've only made a few points changes. Great, Tyranids aren't performing quite as well as we hope. They struggle against these 3 or 4 factions. How about we just nuke those factions? That's a great way to balance Tyranids. The Exalted 8-bound and Slaughter-bound have had some help against tougher targets, while there have been a few other World Eaters points changes too. And the Leagues of Votann, Imperial Agents and Black Templars are untouched at this time. Well, Leagues of Votann Codex has only just dropped. Black Templars is fairly new. Imperial Agents, does anybody even play them? So you can download the Balance Dataslate now. It is linked in the description. This article is linked as well if you want to go through this and get to it there, but they are just in the downloads. 40k. And then in the recently added for the next couple of days, you can see all of the bits that they have added. I'm not going to go through these, but you've got Field Manitorum, you've got Balance Dataslate. Couple of changes to the core rules, nothing that major, and then you've got your erratas and things for a variety of factions. Interesting changes, the ones that I've seen I don't think I have a problem with, but like I say, I am so out of the loop with 40k rules. I couldn't tell you what's on top at the minute. But I'd love to know your thoughts, let me know in the comments below. As always, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one.